I've had a great time chatting with Pam Houston off air, and I'm going to let everybody in on the treat because I was, honestly, Pam, hogging you all to myself. I have been a huge fan of the amazing Pam Houston for, it feels like forever, and her books are more meaningful than I can properly articulate. Cowboys Are My Weakness, Waltzing the Cat, Sighthound, Contents May Have Shifted, a little bit more about me, and now just out, Deep Creek, Finding Hope in the High Country, with this most gorgeous photograph on the cover. Pam will be joining us on February 27th in Providence, Rhode Island. We couldn't be more excited. Everybody who's following our page will know that. They will be like rolling out the red carpet. And in Rhode Island, you can do that, like in one piece. It just goes from tip to tip. And I am honored to have you on the show. And if you follow my page, you will know I do not use that word lightly because I think it's an overused word, but in this case it is apt. Welcome to Reading with Robin, Pam Houston.
Thank you very much.
It is it's very exciting, and we have been talking about this forever, and you and I have been back and forth. It was a while ago trying to figure out a date, and here we have it, February 27th, and people visit pamhouston.net for more information about all of the events, Pam's teaching, her books, gorgeous photo gallery, and Deep Creek. What an amazing Finding Hope in the High Country. And the book is so hopeful, so, I don't know, every sentence a pearl. And when I bring you my advanced copy to sign, you'll see what it looks like. It looks well-loved and nurtured in the best of possible ways. I don't even know where to start. Where would you like? I will throw it to you, Pam. I mean, what should people know when they sit down to read Deep Creek?
Well, I guess one thing would just be how the book came to be. A lot of people are interested in that. After I published my last book, Contents May Have Shifted, my editor said, you know, what we'd really like from you is to think of some book-length adventure that you want to go on, you know, something that you could do as a memoir that would be, you know, an adventure that would fill up a whole book. And you know, I think she meant, dog sledding to the North Pole or sailing around Turkey or, you know, something that I would be likely for me to do. And I spent a whole drive from where I teach in California coming home to my ranch in Colorado, driving along, just saying, well, on this 18-hour drive, I'm going to think about what that book should be, what that adventure should be. And as the closer I got to home, which is always a great moment for me and the dogs, when we get within striking distance of the ranch and we leave the leash-required parts of California behind.
Wow.
I thought, well, gosh, like this is my book-length adventure. You know, I bought a ranch when I had no business buying it. I bought a ranch. I had 5% down payment and no job, and the lady who sold it to me liked the idea of me, so she carried the note because no bank on earth would have lent me even a normal amount of money, let alone 95% of a ranch.
I love it.
And so, and you know, it was a kind of a crazy thing to do, but I did it because I fell in love with this piece of land and I felt called to it, and also probably because I'm a little bit adrenaline addicted and.
Right, that adrenaline rush, but just knowing, like, as I'm reading the book, thinking, like, what must be going through your mind, but taking that leap, and you have this sense of adventure, and I just love reading the way you process that. Kind of however things turn out is, if not so much how they're meant to be at the moment, and then it seems that you can make anything work. and I'm speaking with Pam Houston. Her brand new book is called Deep Creek, Finding Hope in the High Country. Visit her site at pamhouston.net. You can find her on Facebook.
So Robin, I would say just about what you just said, that idea that, I kind of make do with whatever. I mean, that comes, I think of three ways that works in my life. I mean, the first way was obviously a childhood that was less than ideal. I mean, I've taught writing long enough to know that my level of childhood trauma is pretty much in the average range, but it was bad enough for me. And I think, when you grow up in a brutalizing childhood or an alcoholic childhood, a violent childhood, you learn to, you learn to improvise, you learn to protect yourself, you learn to be safe. And then I was a river guide and a hunting guide, and, nothing teaches you how to make do with what you have, like, a roll of duct tape in the middle of Alaska,
Wow.
With a bunch
that sounds
of
like a great event of duct tape with Pam Houston in Alaska.
Who paid you to keep them safe,
Yeah.
But also, since you mention it, as a writing teacher, I mean, I believe strongly that, any set of metaphors will get your story told, and you just need to find out what are the metaphors, I call them glimmers, but what are the sounds, sights, smells, tastes, moments that are meaningful to you, and if you put them on the page, your story is going to rise up through them. So I do think that's kind of my motto in all things.
It's a wonderful
make
motto.
Do with what you have. There are times, even with the abuse and stuff from my childhood, where I just think, who would I be if not for that? Who would I be? Would I be a writer? Would I be a compassionate person? Would I be a good mentor for young women and men who are going through some of the same stuff I went through? What would even be the shape of my life if that hadn't pushed me to the ranch, as well as so many of the other things that are meaningful to me?
Oh, can you even imagine, your life not on that ranch, not being, sewn to the fiber of every bit of that 120-acre glorious. I mean, I love looking at the pictures you post from your travels, from your travels within that 120-mile ranch, the driving, all of it. And people, you must follow Pam wherever she posts and wherever she shares, and start at pamhouston.net, and it will take you everywhere. But you write about the glimmers in Deep Creek, and I've never heard it put that way, and so you have a glimmer, a trail of glimmers, and you said you revisit those, right, when you're looking to see where the threads, where the connections are. Where do you like to store things? Are things on, certainly on your computer, I don't know what that's like, or what's your system and what do you handwrite?
Well, my desktop on my computer, gives certain people in my life the hives. So many icons, and they're not organized. I mean, really, people react physically when I open my computer in front of them.
I have to show you mine when you come here because I have a feeling, but it works for you. That's all that matters.
And
do they get twitchy? Do they get oh my God, Pam?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about glimmers is they're not meant to be organized. That's the whole point. I'm sort of a collagist, and they're meant to create a sort of random assembly. And I try to put unlike objects together kind of by feel, and that all makes it sound very clinical. It doesn't turn out to be clinical. That's what makes the essays in Deep Creek, for instance. But it's this guy who delivers hay, or this moment of light on the surface of the water, or something I overheard at the feed store. All those. It's just the simple stuff of my life. But the idea that sometimes you can put orcas next to fruit bats and something really amazing will happen. There's something for me in the unlikely pairing of things that usually is where my story is allowed to come up and present itself to me through the glimmers. But I always start with the glimmers because I just believe that they know a lot more than I do. And if I get my analytical brain involved too early, then I'll kind of railroad the story and won't let it realize its full potential.
And so this is the full potential is realized here in Deep Creek. So now when your editor suggested this big adventure, when you brought this story and this is how you wanted to write it, were they like, oh, good, we're not going to be subsidizing a trip to wherever, or no
well,
place like
really
home, or no, you didn't. Okay.
No, I just wrote a proposal, telling like the key points, that buying it for 5% down because this lady liked the idea of me. 5% down and a copy of my first book. My realtor took to her. So that, and then, just the last 20. I mean, I've been here for 25 years, but the last 20 years of trying to get it paid off because it was a 20-year note, and just all the crazy stuff I did to try to get it paid off. And then in the meantime, how it became, the center of my life and the, this giant love story and kind of the creation of me as an adult. And then I paid it off finally during the largest wildfire in southwestern Colorado history, right in the middle of it. I drove my last check to Donna Blair, like through the smoke and the flames, not knowing if the ranch was going to be here, in a week. So that was a crazy thing for a fiction writer to do.
Right? You can't make that up.
Okay, now it's mine as of today, and it's going to burn down.
I mean, how can you write? You couldn't if you were writing that as fiction, and you talk about writing fiction and nonfiction and what that means and how fiction does. There was something that I marked it down because I loved it so much, but now I can't remember exactly what I want to. It's nothing like an author likes more than to having themselves quoted back to themselves. But like you couldn't, if you were writing that, people would be like, "Oh, come on, that's just too dramatic. How can that possibly happen?" And drama is all around us. But this that Donna Blair liked the idea of you, and just you talked about in the beginning where you were driving around and places you were looking at, and to find that, and the way you describe coming back, and like you say, where it's leashless, and that vista, and that sounds like that never gets old.
No, it's true. I mean, there are definitely things that I miss about the larger world when I'm here, but they feel really inconsequential. I miss sushi. I miss movie theaters. I miss I kind of miss New Jersey, honestly, where I grew up, where everybody talks to everybody. Like people here are very stoic, and they're kind and they're helpful, but they're very stoic. And, when I go back east and you walk into a convenience store, and you know the guy's whole life story, and his brother in prison and his wife's cheating on him, like by the time you pay for your Coke, and that's how I grew up. And when I get around that, that feels really good to me, and it's definitely not like that here. But like I said, when I'm away from the ranch, it's a different kind of missing. It's a much more significant, this kind of, I'm always so happy when I come around the last corner and see it, and my whole body relaxes. And, it's a place that I believe, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say about how I wound up here with a 95% mortgage and no job. And, I could say, I was addicted to danger because of my childhood. And I think there's truth in all of that. But I also think, like, this piece of ground called to me, and I was awake enough to listen to it. And for whatever reason, even in my, my dumb late 20s. I guess I was 30. But, like even at a time when I did not feel so intuitively aware. Let's put it that way.
But it was there. It was still in there.
I had the wherewithal to know.
You cognitively recognize that, and there's nothing like looking back. I think we're the same age, and we just have so much wisdom. I mean, there's just it's oozing, but still enough of a sense just innately to know, I guess, even at that younger, that sounds like a baby age right now. But like you say, 5% down, I mean, who does that? I mean, who will take that on? And just that meant...
Well, and I didn't even know hot water didn't just come out of the wall. I mean, what I didn't know... What I didn't know about how to live on a ranch, would have filled a book.
and in fact, but that's the thing too, like, because right, exactly, could have, but like, why would you know? Like, when you know nothing else, and I just love, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, or maybe Bruce Springsteen has it in one of the songs about missing New Jersey at some point, but it's those things, and you travel so much too, so that you have, it would seem a nice balance of sushi and movie theaters when you want them, you know, when you want them, and then when you're there, oh my goodness, where you are. So I just, but it's not just the sense of buying something that would be so like unimaginable, but like something that you had to like learn every bit of and understand, and have that be you know, everybody counting on you in the space and your land and what you had to offer each other. It's just an amazing read, and I have been carrying around Deep Creek since the galley arrived and sharing these stories, and people are just, you know, have so many questions, and between the writing, the traveling, your love of animals, all of it, when people come to your, you know, either the writing workshops or when I know that we were talking off air that you're speaking at a conference on Saturday, I'm giving you the wrong days, doing the keynote. What sorts of things do people most want to hear from you when they have just a little bit of time and they're trying to stretch out their signing as long as possible?
A lot of people ask about the dogs or the sheep or the horses. I mean, this book is going to be a lot about the animals. I read from it in Boulder several months ago, and I was amazed to see, like, ranchers there. Like that, so that
cool.
For me, that's like a totally new audience. You know,
that's very cool. Yeah,
my audience is the Subaru driving.
With the
dog bandanaed women, you know, and but there were a bunch of sheep ranchers at my reading in Boulder, so that was super fun.
That's cool.
You know, people want to know how much of it is true. That's been true for every other book. Now, here with this book, I did my level best to tell the truth, and it's nonfiction. It's a memoir, and so that question, I guess, will be off the table for a change, because
you would think
my fiction has been so autobiographical, you know, over the years, that's a thing people always want to know. Well, how much of this is really you? And so maybe we won't be doing that this time. I don't know.
That'll be refreshing for you, right? Although sometimes I think memoir people are even more fascinated, you know, of like what your memory. It would seem to me, I mean, you write with such raw honor and grit in all of your writing, but it is fascinating when there's so much of you in fiction that then you're writing nonfiction. And for the real, you know, deep reader writer types, I can imagine a lot of those questions. And people want to know for their own work, you know, or how to share and process things. But that's really cool. I mean, and how long did this one take? I never asked that question.
It took forever.
I can't imagine.
It took about 6 years, which normally a book takes me 4 years. And the one reason it took a long time is because I had to learn. I mean, I've written a lot of nonfiction over the years, individual essays, But the arc of a memoir is a little different than the arc of a novel or a collection of short stories, and I had to learn that difference. I said to myself when I started this book, I'm not going to rely on any of my old tricks, which is a terrible thing for a writer to say. I don't even know what I meant by it. I always have to make it was a
glimmer. It was a glimmer.
I always have to make everything hard, but I found out what I meant by that over the course of writing, and part of what I meant was, in fiction, there's always, like, fiction can explode, in my mind, like, vertically. Like, it can, because you can just leave what really happened, and because you're free to make things up, like I always imagined, like, I thought, okay, I'm bored now, so pop something up, or dive, you know, and that's the way I think of fiction, especially in revision. And in memoir, it's a much more horizontal process. Like, I thought of it as like water spreading out across a field. It was very, very different. And so instead of like popping, instead of exploding, it had to like just trickle into all the little crevasses of the dirt, you know. Wow. And so I had to teach myself that. And then when I turned the book in, it was not the book my editor was expecting. And I don't even know what to say about that, except like Like, she thought I didn't write what I said I was going to write in my proposal, and I thought that I wrote
sounds like you did.
exactly what I wrote in my proposal. Well,
right.
I mean, that's an objective question, and I totally believe she believed
Sure.
that I hadn't, and I believed I had, but I didn't know how to fix that, you know, and she didn't really know how to tell me to fix it. So we had about a year of, like,
wow.
not exactly a standoff, but where I was just trying to make it better, but not really understanding. You know, like, we
yeah,
just,
I'm
you know,
fascinated by this, actually.
Yeah,
like,
we had two visions, and
mm-hmm.
And I, to this day, I can't tell you why exactly she didn't think it was right, and I also can't tell you exactly what I did to make it right. Like, I just kept going back into the book, and, you know, anytime you go back in a book, it gets better, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so I just kept going back in the book and back in the book
wow.
and, like, changing what I could, even though I was like, well, she's going to like this even less. But, like,
so what
just
did
kept
she
reworking
want?
it
Yeah.
and reimagining it. I actually got a wonderful, wonderful read from a woman named Michelle Mortimer, who works in my agent's office.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me an incredible, specific read. She's like, do these 6 things. And honestly,
wow.
no one in my life has ever done that for me, and it was so spot on. Like,
wow.
to this day, like, I owe her just unmitigated thanks, because she went and she was like, these 6 things, and some of them were big and some of them were smaller, but she was right about all of them. And then by the time everybody read it, people were cool, and there we went, and we were off to the publishing room. But I didn't know.
Story.
There were
wow.
points where I didn't even know if this book would come out.
And, you know, as a reader, and I'm speaking with Pam Houston, visit her site at pamhouston.net. We're talking about Deep Creek, Finding Hope in the High Country. As a reader, this is all I know. You know, I know this. Well, I have the galley, and so there are some small changes with the finished book.
Yeah, lots of typos.
yeah, and I don't even notice those. It's so fun. Yeah. Like because I read what I think, you know, that's what it meant. And I don't even remember, because I'm just reading and so drawn into the story and just the way you connect every piece of the story. So I can only imagine this. So I don't know what I fully imagine. I know what happens with the trajectory of a book. So I can't imagine what were they taught. You know, that's fascinating to me. But I'm only thankful that Deep Creek is here with us, and this is what we get to share and read. But certainly as a writing. When you're teaching your writing students, those stories have to be invaluable about pursuing what you want, and also being open to hearing, you know, that to be given those 6 points, those gifts, and then everybody's happy then, right? I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, I love to be edited. You know, I this was just the first time really in my. I mean, there were times with my former editor, who was a great editor, Carol Huck-Smith. She's a storied editor. Oh. She passed away during the writing of my last book, but we would get into fights, you know, and I would push and she would push, and one of us would give in, and that was all, you know, just for me part of the process, because I grew up with Carol. I mean, she's the one who discovered me, and so she was like a parental figure, and you know, so all of that. This was really different than that. Like, we couldn't understand each other.
Right, where you're even, right, I'm trying to, like...
Even though, like, I have great respect for her as an editor. I like her tremendously. Like, I didn't know what she saw, and she didn't know what I saw. And so it was kind of like blindly moving a bunch of stuff around. And like I said, there's no doubt in my mind that the book is better now.
Well, it's just awesome.
And I do think that 6-point read was so critical. But you know, I also think just time is critical, and I think probably when all said and done, the book needed another year. You know,
there's that, right? And do you think people sometimes are just too? This is a whole other question. And actually, I know I need to let you go, because I promised. I think I alluded to certain time parameters, Pam. I'm not sure there was a promise, but that, you know, for people who are working on books to understand, because I know that from what I see a lot, there's just this rush to published. It's not always maybe the best it could be, but you're so open from what I'm hearing, like to understand too that like maybe that it did need more. And like 6 years is a long time, I'm sure.
It's a long time.
Yeah. It's a
long time.
It really is a long time. Well, I can't wait to hear more. We are beyond thrilled, and we will be gushing until you get here, so be prepared for more. I try not to always tag you. I write your name, but I try because it's like annoying. Who wants to be tagged all day? And it's like, oh, there those girls are again. And I have to tell you, Rhode Island and New Jersey have many commonalities, so you should feel very welcome. And if you run into a store to try and do one little errand, it could take you 25 minutes or so.
That sounds good.
And you will absolutely make long lost new friends that you never knew were looking for you. And it's Deep Creek, Finding Hope in the High Country. Visit everywhere Pam is posting, and there'll be, I'm sure, today there's an essay. I just posted it I think on Point Street Reading Series, and also I'm posting on Reading with Rob and sharing these essays. Are there many that will come out, with the celebration of the book?
Yeah, there'll be interviews and that kind of thing. A couple of the pieces of the book have been. The intro was in the 40th anniversary of Outside magazine last year, so a lot of people saw that.
Cool. Yeah.
And I have another essay coming out in Outside in a couple months about my old horse Roni, which is people will meet in the book.
Yeah. Oh, I love the essays because it's just more, and it's you want more. You give so much. 6 years worth here in Deep Creek, 25 years, many years worth. But the essays are just something that people love to share around, and then people are like, oh, my God, I have to get that book, and I have to go back and get the rest of them and read all of them. Give yourself a treat and read Pam Houston's work, and we hope to see you on February. Not you, I'm talking to the audience. We definitely will be seeing Pam Houston. But audience, we'd love to see you here on February 27th. There's more information online.
Thank you very much, Robin. It's been great talking to you.